Mere Conservatism.
How you doing, David?
Hey, man.
I am so
doing
glad.
Fine. I got gas earlier.
No, but that you don't mean indigestion.
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
I'm glad
No,
to
not
hear.
that kind. I got gas, and I didn't wait in line. I just pulled right up to the pump.
How in the
and they
world
had
did you
gas.
not have a line?
Well, I went to Costco. I think I got lucky on the line because when I turned around after pumping, I looked behind me and there's quite a long line of cars.
Timing, the Lord's timing.
Yeah, I think the Lord blessed me on that with the timing. But the good news is I got gas. I get gas the same day every week, whether I need it or not. And so I stuck with that. I was at just a little bit more than half a tank. But when the panic started, I didn't get gas because I said to myself, I have gas. I don't need it. Let's let this play out because I had a feeling that it would start to mitigate after a few days, which
of course.
apparently it has. But this is a bad situation with the gas shortage.
It proves something. And, speaking of those gas shortages, which, by the way, several southeastern states were hit pretty hard. North Carolina particularly, like 70% of their gas stations had shortages because of the run on them. But in Georgia Governor Brian Kemp, he was on Fox Newsroom recently. He said that folks within his state don't fuel up unless it's necessary, like what you're talking about.
People do not need to hoard gas. The supply is coming back to us. I think some of the measures that we took more than a day ago, waiving weight limits, the drive time hours, getting the waiver on the winter blend to use that fuel has helped the supply chain a little bit. If we can keep people from overfilling up, I think the supply will catch up to us.
Gas prices were going up anyway, but the supply problem is been exacerbated by people not doing what you just said you did. Yeah. Literally saying, I got to go out, I got to get some tanks, some empty drums someplace, and I got to fill up some extra gas.
Get some Walmart bags, fill them up with it. Did you see that?
Does that blow your mind?
The thing about this kind of thing, I mean, there's so many layers of this that we could talk about. Sometimes this kind of thing is a self-fulfilling prophecy. You start talking about gas shortages, and everybody goes out and fills up, whether they need it or not. They buy a bunch of 5-gallon containers, they fill those up, they panic,
right,
and they cause a shortage when there wouldn't necessarily be one by itself.
It's the reason we have the toilet tissue shortage.
And this happens sometimes during hurricanes. It happens when we're going to have an ice storm. Everybody buys the milk and buys the gas. I mean, it just happens. It's the way it is now. I don't drive that much during the week typically. I don't usually have to. And so I was able to not fill up. I was fine. My sister, she drives every day. She works at a school, drives about half an hour one way. She drives a lot. She's got to have gas in her car.
Right.
She can't get to work. And there are a lot of people that drive a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of people in Atlanta that drive a lot. They spend a lot of time in their car. They have to have gas. And so those people are a little bit more at risk of not being able to go anywhere and being stuck because they run out of gas. And so this was a major problem for a lot of people.
Well, but the thing is this, and here's the component that bothers me, and I'm as guilty of it in some ways as others. When you panic because you know other people are panicking, then that's going to make the panic bigger. Okay, it just works out that way. And the problem I have is that and for those who don't know, even though we talk about political stuff, we're not professional pundits and experts in the field, but we are both people of faith. We're Christians. So my question is, are we demonstrating as believers any kind of difference in our response to what's happening than those who don't claim any faith at all? And I got to tell you, I'm not seeing much difference. And that kind of bugs me that there ought to be a difference, David, is all I'm trying to say. And I'm not fussing at people.
Well, there might be for some people. There might be a difference for some people. But your wisdom and prudence is necessary.
Yes. And that's not fear, though. That's not fear.
So here's the thing.
Yeah.
When bad things happen, I think it is appropriate to react. Well, it's appropriate to react appropriately, obviously, is what I was going to say. That's really obvious. Panic is not a good word, but urgency, perhaps in some situations, is okay.
Right.
Here's the thing. And I think that faith and trusting God is a virtue that we should all have. That doesn't mean that we don't have urgency in some situations.
Right.
Here's another characteristic that we ought to have as Christians: prudence and wisdom. Mm-hmm. And we ought to prepare for this kind of thing.
So now you took the words out of my mouth.
So look, here's what you should know. And I say this to everybody I know anytime there's any kind of crisis. Something will happen. It will. It's going to happen. Mm-hmm. Things will happen. The best thing you can do is to be prepared ahead of time so that if something like this happens, you don't feel like you don't have to rush out and panic buy gas or water or food
or toilet tissue
or whatever.
That's a great point, because it doesn't have to be this. It could be a hurricane. It could be any situation that comes where you're going to have a disruption in your normal supply of goods and services.
And that's why half my garage is filled with plywood right now, because I planned ahead.
It's amazing.
No, I'm just kidding. I didn't pre-buy plywood. But you get what I'm saying.
I was getting amazed for a second there. But so my point is, again, but that's still not fear, and that's still not panic. And fear and panic will make you do unwise things. And for me, it makes you act and respond to a person who's not of faith. And there ought to be a difference. That's all I'm trying to say.
And so let's talk a little bit about some of the other lessons from this, because this was about a 5-day shutoff of an oil pipeline by hackers.
A major.
And you saw how people reacted.
Right.
Not great.
No.
And there were shortages very quickly. Imagine if this was a worse attack. Imagine if the pipeline had been destroyed.
Oh.
And they couldn't just turn it back on. Imagine if the ransomware had infected more areas of the pipeline, or this had been a ransomware attack on a power grid or on any kind of other automation that we have set up in our country. We are at risk in this country with the way we have things set up of these cyber attacks.
Sure.
And things, I don't know about you, Cleve. I don't feel like things have gone great since Joe Biden has been president.
No, I wouldn't say that.
We're 4 months in. The good news is we only have 44 months to go.
I don't think Biden will be around that long. Go on.
Okay, maybe not.
Okay.
But the cyber attack on this pipeline is not necessarily Joe Biden's fault. This kind of thing could have happened under Trump. And if Trump was president right now, it might have happened anyway. However, I do think that the response of the government, the federal government, was a little bit lackluster.
Lackluster? It was pitiful. It was a sign of passive weakness to me.
I totally agree. I mean, the way that they reacted to this made me think, are you guys actually going to do anything about this? Except for the main thing I got from their response to it was, hey, Green New Deal would sure help mitigate some of this stuff.
Psaki and others were saying, see, it's a sign. If we were a little bit greener, who knows? We've been more prepared.
If you had an electric car, this wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, we forget about the fact that batteries need petroleum and that kind of stuff.
And forget about the fact that we were just attacked by a foreign power.
It was pitiful.
And it really affected us. And luckily, it was only for 5 days. But this is bad. This is like a warning shot, a shot over the bow.
It was.
An opening salvo.
That's
of
exactly what I was going to get to. You 100%.
I want to see our federal government say, we are not going to let this stand. Mm-hmm. We're going to find out who did this, and we're going to hold them accountable. Not only that, but we're going to harden our cybersecurity. We're going to do but no, what they said was, this is a private matter. If they want to pay ransom,
it was such a weak, lackluster response, and that is the primary difference to me. If Trump had still been in power, the response would have been totally different. The grown-ups would have said, "We're going to find out exactly what happened. We're going to confirm it. We're going to prepare our own defense, but we're also going to take some kind of action. Somebody is going to have to be held accountable.
Somebody is getting their Netflix accounts canceled."
Okay. At any rate, so just had to bring that up. Florida business owners Mike and Jillian Carnival were on Fox recently. They were on the Ingram angle, and they were on there after being arrested multiple times for not enforcing a mask mandate in their business, their gym business. Anyway, Governor Ron Desantis, again, I think this guy may be the next presidential candidate. I'll hold off on that. But he was on Fox, and he says he's going to grant the couple clemency.
I'm going to sign a reprieve under my constitutional authority. So that'll delay the case for 60 days against both of them. And then when our clemency board meets in the coming weeks, we'll issue pardons not only for Mike and Jillian, but for any Floridian that may have outstanding infractions for things like masks and social distancing.
That's what you do if you're a leader.
This is great. It is so great. Now, for a long time, Desantis, they had no statewide mask mandate or anything like that, but local municipalities were able to do that, and that's probably why the Carnivales got in trouble from a local mandate. Well, since then, Desantis has made a rule that he has joined Georgia in saying you can't mandate a mask. Georgia, we did this from the beginning.
Right. I remember.
Our governor Kemp said, you can't mandate masks in Georgia. You just can't do it. And so now DeSantis is joining that. He's anywhere in Florida, you can't mandate masks anymore. And so because of that, he's going to say, if you're in trouble for not enforcing a mask mandate, you're off the hook. And this is totally the right thing to do. This is a great exercise of political power and the power of his position as governor of that state. It's the right thing to do. I think it's awesome.
It's another example, too, because I've said this to you so many times. I know I sound like a broken record, but showing what the leadership of our states can do to battle this tide of virtue signaling, of oppressive measures to disenfranchise those who don't follow certain narratives. We need more governors to do this right now.
And you know one thing I love about it is that he's actually doing something. Way too many of our politicians
talking.
They talk. They say, "Oh, they kicked the ball to the other party." They say, "Well, I can't make that decision." It's kind of like, frankly, what DeSantis did earlier by letting local municipalities make mask mandates.
Right.
He never should have done that.
Yeah.
Now he's doing the right thing, which is good. But they did the same thing in South Carolina. McMaster allowed Hilton Head and different places to make their own mask mandates when in reality he should have said no.
Right, I agree.
You can't do that because that's not the right thing to do, to mandate masks. Too many politicians just don't want to take responsibility and make a decision and exercise the power that they've been elected to exercise. They don't want to do it. And so they push it off to somebody else. I'm glad he's actually making a decision, and he's doing this a lot.
Well,
he's setting himself up to run for president.
Agreed, and he's doing it the right way, by showing that he's pushing back against this oppressive force being used by both the culture and government to make people behave in a way that robs us of our freedom. But my point is, the governor of McMaster in South Carolina, where I live, and also in Georgia, have dropped a mandate for masks for kids. Students. And that's important. Parents have a right to decide that kind of thing. And so in South Carolina, with the exception of when they're on school buses, which come under the federal province, apparently, in school, they're no longer required to wear a mask if their moms say no. My little grandkids were so happy about that because, David, I got to tell you, it was just surreal seeing little kids in school with these masks on. It hurt my heart more than seeing a lot of adults fearfully wearing the mask. So I just say freedom is okay. If you want to wear a mask, that's fine. I'm not against anybody choosing to do so. But this is a larger narrative, how the government has been able to just literally legislate some weird behavior from folks, or you're in trouble.
So you and Zorro, very glad that you can wear masks if you want to. No, the kids are not at risk at this disease. No. We've known that for a long time. They don't catch it.
No.
Very much. When they do, they're not very seriously ill for the most part. Schools are not a vector of transmission. They haven't been anywhere in the world. Schools everywhere should be open. They're not everywhere.
No, they're not.
But they really ought to be. And it's a good thing that they are doing that. There are places that you go, Cleve, where you have to wear a mask if you're 2 years old and older. In fact, my wife and my family and I, we're going to go to Dollywood coming up here at the end of this month. I've never been to Dollywood, really looking forward to it. But apparently,
I've been there. It's great.
Apparently at Dollywood, if you're 2 years old, you have to wear a mask.
No, don't say that.
We have a 2-year-old.
No, you're not. You're kidding.
I can't even get my 2-year-old to keep her shoes on. Okay? She's not going to wear a mask. I don't know what we're going to do. I have no idea. So I really don't.
Are you serious?
But a 2-year-old should not, in no circumstance ever, should have to wear a mask.
No.
It's ridiculous. It's crazy.
And it goes right into our next story. It's also against what real science would say. House Republicans, by the way, are introducing a bill calling for medical advisor to the president, Dr. Anthony Fauci, calling for his immediate dismissal from the federal government. South Carolina Republican Congressman Ralph Norman is the co-sponsor of that bill, and he was on Fox and Friends to talk about Dr. Fauci.
He's the spokesman for the nation's health, and he just missed the mark. Look at how he's been wrong from day one on the number of deaths, on the number of people that are infected with this, and really to not call the attention of the crisis we've got, medical crisis on the border with the new strain of the virus. He's just incompetent.
So something needs to be done. Now, I don't think he's going to be fired because, unfortunately, this is not going to go past Biden. But something needs to be said. This man is incompetent. I actually believe he's also lying. Because I can remember when he was saying you don't need the mask at the beginning. You can as well. And
we all know that he lied. He admitted that he lied for a good reason, though. But here's the thing. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, if you know that this is not true, that Fauci is the highest paid federal employee that we have.
That's what I've heard.
He makes more than any other federal employee.
More than
in
the president.
Country.
Yeah.
More than the president.
Yeah.
Dr. Fauci.
Dr. Fauci.
So he has this is the issue with the CDC and the NIH and all this. They're usually wrong or they're late.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it's just the way that it is. And in many cases, they just kind of stab at the dark, and they've admitted as much. They admitted this, for instance, with the 6-foot rule.
Right.
They just came up with that out of thin air because they thought, well, 6 feet sounds good. Let's just say that. And you know what? I don't even have a problem with that. The problem comes when people take things like that and decide that they're hard science and you don't dare dispute it.
Right.
And everybody in the country, every place of business in the country is putting down stickers 6 feet apart that you have to stand on. And you're this kind of thing is enforced by law because you couldn't even open schools because people had to be 6 feet apart and you can't fit enough students. This is the problem. And I have the same problem with Dr. Fauci. It's not even that he's wrong a lot, because if he was just out there saying, look, this is my recommendation because I want to play it safe. There's a lot we don't know about this virus. So to be safe, this is what we recommend. That's not what happens.
Yeah.
Dr. Fauci says something. It has the weight of science behind it. It's everything he says is gospel truth.
Yeah.
And you dare not doubt it. The problem is so much of what he says is wrong. It's late.
He changes
it's
it himself.
It's not true.
Yeah.
He changes it himself. This is the problem. And so there's nuance here when people like you and I say Dr. Fauci should be fired because he lies. It's not even, and the CDC and the NIH and all these people, it's not even that they're wrong. It's that's not my problem. I expect the government to be wrong about stuff. I don't expect the CDC to always get it exactly right. I hope that they will do their best. My problem comes when people give them so much authority that they now control my lives at their whim.
Well, my problem with them is that it is obvious that they are simply doing a narrative that complies with the Democrats' desire.
Well, that's true too,
to keep the panic up.
And they take direction from political bodies like the teachers union.
The teachers union president gives them a call, and they
I mean, the director of the CDC will get on and say, when we make recommendations, first thing that we do is we consult with people who are affected by the regulation to make sure that it's what they need. Okay, but I thought that this was science. Why do you have to consult with a teachers union?
They even use the exact words that the teachers union president told them they should use. I mean, that's not just consulting. That's taking your marching orders.
And so I know that this is about Dr. Fauci, but really I kind of, he's the face of all these organizations that have undue authority and undue sway.
It's almost divine authority. It's almost divine authority.
It really is. And this is the thing about the left. They want a nation. They want a government ruled by experts. It's an oligarchy.
Yeah.
So, kind of. So they want to take out any debate. They want to remove any debate.
Yeah.
The way that they do that is they appeal to quote unquote experts, the science. And now we don't get to decide anything as citizens, as people who live here. Now we don't get to decide anything. We have to yield to a small group of quote-unquote experts that decide what we can and can't do.
Right.
That is not our system. That's not how things work.
And to me, it's more insidious on this level, David. It's using fear as a bludgeon to get people's behavior to conform to what you want them to do. In other words, it's always a fearful thing.
Yeah.
It's always a pronouncement. If you don't do this, you die. Okay.
Yeah.
It's not if you don't do this, then there's going to be some perhaps consequences we'll have to deal with. You die. If you don't do exactly what we say, you die. Your kids die. Your grandparents die. So that kind of fear mongering, and the Democrats are past masters of doing it. The CDC and Dr. Fauci, to me, are guilty at the very least of allowing that to get people basically so scared they'll do anything.
I'm not just being I'm not just throwing a bomb when I say that it is tyrannical.
No, you're not.
It's absolutely
it is tyrannical
because
yes.
what they just decide what we're going to do, and the government enforces it, and they say it's not us, it's the CDC, it's the science, trust the science denier. So
yeah,
I think that they should fire him at the very least.
Yeah.
We'll save some money because he makes way too much.
The conflict going on between Israel and the militant groups in Gaza has continued as deadly airstrikes being launched into Israel and Israel launching airstrikes back in defense. Senator Marco Rubio, another person who I think will also make another run for president, was on Fox News' Prime Time, and he talked about those growing attacks, David.
These terrorists have rockets and they use it to try to kill Israelis. That's the reason why it exists. Number two is the only response that you've seen from Israel is in response to these attacks. And they live in a very tough neighborhood, and they made abundantly clear, if you hit us, we're going to hit you back 5 times harder.
The mainstream media and the Biden administration already picking up the narrative, by the way, of children, women, and those being killed and hurt by the Israeli attack. Okay. Yeah. It's something that went under Obama all the time. And so because that's what they do, Hamas, they put those missile launchers in residential areas, hopefully that Israel's response will result in civilian deaths, which I think is despicable, but Israel gets to blame.
Yeah. So you have to understand that there's a large group of people, many in this country on the left, that don't think that Israel should exist.
That's true.
I mean, they literally don't. They
AOC feels that way.
Yes, she does. They believe that Israel is an occupying force. In other words, what they think is that Israel had no natural claim for a nation in that area of the world, that it was artificially created, and that they displaced Palestinians that should actually live there.
That's what they say.
And that they have encroached on that land ever since the beginning. So the people that believe that, they think it's totally just for Palestinians to want to completely annihilate Israel, because none of them think that Israel should exist at all. That's why they don't see a problem with the Arabs firing rockets into Israel, but they do see a problem with Israel firing rockets into Palestine.
It's also,
they don't think that Israel should be there to begin with.
So it's justified.
It's a totally illegitimate state in their opinion.
Yeah. And the thing is, we need to understand, again, we're seeing concrete evidence of Iran's complicity as well.
Don't get me started. Look, I just want to put a pin in that again and just say there's two ways to look at it. You see a good guy and a bad guy. If you think that Israel has a right to exist, then Israel is the good guy. Yes. And if you think that Israel doesn't have the right to exist, you think Israel's the bad guy. And that's really the only two options you have. You either think Israel should be able to exist or you don't. that it comes down to that. Now, Iran. Okay, first thing that Joe Biden did when he became president is make nice with Iran.
Yes,
he felt bad with the way Trump treated him.
Yeah.
This is one of the biggest debacles of the Obama presidency and foreign policy is how they handled Iran. And Joe Biden is Obama's third term. They're going right back to it.
You got it.
Gave a bunch of money to Iran. Gave a bunch of money to Palestine. It makes me so mad, Cleve, when I think about it. That money is being used. They're firing a lot of rockets.
Right. And they didn't pay for those rockets.
That's American money.
Yes.
Funneled through Iran or funneled through funneled through foreign aid. Yeah. Those might it makes me angry to say.
It ought to. It ought to outrage
those might as well be American rockets firing on Israel.
It ought to outrage. We ought to be outraged by it again. Yes.
Trump was president for 4 years. This kind of thing didn't happen.
No, they wouldn't dare.
It wasn't happening because they were cut off from money.
Yeah,
they were. The Trump administration basically said, "Come to the table if you want peace. If not,
I'll go talk to those who do want peace."
Right. Yeah. We're going to talk to the people who do want peace, and peace was breaking out everywhere in the Middle East. Israel was making peace treaties with whoever and whatnot. And 4 months into Joe Biden's term, Israel's at war.
Yeah.
Because of American-bought, basically, rockets in Gaza, firing into Israel and killing people.
Because of Biden unleashing the money to go to Iran. And you're right, and they are doing this. And again, this is an atrocity. It's intentional, by the way, not accidental, because the Biden administration, just like Obama was, is not a friend to Israel. We have got to close up on this.
Already?
Yeah, already.
Oh, there's so much more we can talk about when it comes to Israel.
We're going to go back to that. Don't worry, because this is unfortunately going to last longer than we would hope it would last. They can hear the entire broadcast again.
Check it out on Facebook. You can also find us on YouTube, MereCon Media on YouTube, or the Apple Podcast app.
That's cool. And we'll see you for another edition of the broadcast of Mere Conservatism. David Perry and I'm Cleve Walker saying have a fantastic day. Anyway.